Hi, and welcome to the Law Simplified, the world's largest independent online law school. I'm your instructor, Shavin Bandadnayaka. This is a bit of a different video. It's more educational, I would argue, from a practical or a professional sense than that of the substantive law itself. And the reason why I decided to make this particular video was over the years I've had the opportunity and the privilege, I would argue, to mentor some extraordinary students who've gone on to achieve great things in terms of their academics on the one hand, but more importantly, as professionals, as solicitors, as barristers, judges, and in some instances, even members of parliament and ministers. As a result, I've noticed that most students who tend to set up fast track or masterclass programs with me effectively go beyond the mandate of the substantive law or even the procedure for that matter, and it turns out to become much more than that. So this video is intended to give you a broad stroke understanding from my experience on what students ought to look at in terms of approaching the law, what should really be the mantra when they move on to their professional careers as such, and then somewhere down the line most students, or for that matter anyone, would become stagnant in their career. So how exactly to leverage your skills and talent to grow to a greater level. So for the astute among you, this video might be slightly longer than usual and broken into 3 parts. So I do recommend, if you don't have the time to go through this video all in one go, save it in your playlist, for instance, if you're watching this on YouTube, or leave a comment below so that you can always reference it later on. If you like the type of content that I make on this particular YouTube channel, as well as the different platforms that the Law Simplified is disseminated on, make sure you subscribe to the Law Simplified and enroll in the comprehensive online law school platform, complete with theory, tutorial, and workshop lessons that I've conducted on a one-on-one basis for students who've gone on to achieve first-class law degrees around the world. Okay, now the first part of this particular video is to give you an understanding of whether a pursuit of law is what you should be doing. Oftentimes I'm approached by students from different walks of life and different jurisdictions, and they generally congregate or they generally gravitate towards the reason for doing law as either because they have a family background in it, maybe a parent or a grandparent has been a lawyer, barrister, or a solicitor. Maybe it's peer pressure. A lot of students tend to find that friends and colleagues are trying to pursue law, so they go with the trend. Or in some interesting occasions, maybe acquaintances, friends, or family members had seen how they interact with them on a day-to-day basis and essentially suggested to them, hey, you know what, you're good at your arguments, you're good at presenting, you're good at talking, why don't you pursue something in law? What I'd have to add to this from experience is that I've seen students come into the law in terms of the substantive attributes of law and doing an LLB or a GDL program in one of these 3 streams. And arguably, it's all based on external factors. What I mean by that is it's not intrinsically because the student wants to do it. It's actually because either a person close to them has suggested it to them, they've been hearing it constantly, or just simply the fact that they've grown up in an environment of law. My advice is to pretty much block out any extrinsic aspect of it in making the decision to pursue law. You should never have a situation where you've been doing law, you've been studying law, and you come to a point where it's frustrating, it's stressful, you don't seem to gel well with the modules, and you tell yourself, gosh, I did this because X person told me to, or Y person saw me and suggested it, or because family members have been doing it for years on end. This is essentially a decision that you need to make for yourself. And why I say that in a relatively blunt and harsh manner is because it's one of the most important decisions that you will make. The good thing about law, however, is that unlike most other professions or most other types of subject areas, law is something that you can manipulate and shoehorn, so to speak, into so many different careers later on, and that's something that we will touch on in a bit. But having said that, you don't want to have a frustrating experience studying law if it is not something that you innately want to do. So don't look extrinsically, don't look externally, look internally. One of the great things that you can do in the 21st century, in the modern day, which you couldn't and which probably your parents or your grandparents could not have, is to actually get a taste of what the law is like and what content is like, what the material is like, before you jump into selecting a university and enrolling in it. Have a look at most of the videos on this very YouTube channel. If you're someone who's interested in law, there are plenty of lessons that I have on this channel, and if you want to go even a step further, enrolling in the online law school platform will give you access to 500 plus hours of lessons that I've conducted with fast track and masterclass students, to get a taste of what your academics are going to be like, to see whether it's something that you would want to pursue in the first place. So you need to dip your toes in the water, so to speak, before you step in. That's a great thing to do at the very first instance, and I have a number of students who are now lawyers or barristers or solicitors who did that exact same thing. They watched videos, they read a few articles online, they got into the habit of surrounding themselves with the academics even before starting university, to see if it's something that they'd enjoy doing. So don't let external factors make the decision for you. While they can be persuasive and they would give you the necessary motivation, the ultimate decision should be your own self. Go through and do proactive research to see if this is an area you'd want to pursue in the first place. Okay, that's the first part of your career aspect, so to speak. Because career starts with making a decision or the leap of faith in order to get into law as a subject. Look inwards, not outwards. Once you've made that decision, however, you need to then start planning out well ahead of time on how you're going to utilize this qualification or doing law in terms of your career, in terms of your professional aspect of life. Most students tend to jump into law, whether be it an internal or an external decision, in the mindset that they are going to practice law. But arguably, in today's day and age, practicing law or being on your feet, being a solicitor or a barrister, is only one angle, one part of this profession. Now, on a number of occasions on this very YouTube channel, I have spoken about different pathways that graduates in law often take. I'll leave a few links in the description below, and a card will probably pop up somewhere on this video, which points to a few videos that I have spoken about this subject also, if you want to read into it further. But it's very important to step into law knowing exactly what you're going to, or what you would want to do at the end. Now, granted, you might not be able to be specific about this because you're just getting into a subject area that you have very limited knowledge on, let alone what prospects in terms of a career that you would have. But one great thing about law is that you do have the time to understand how best you can bring in your own personal skill set to leverage your personal attributes with that of the law. But my only advice, and this also having looked at so many students from around the world, is that don't shoehorn yourself into one particular area. There'll be countless areas that you can look at that are much more nuanced, that have some link to the law, that might even be connected to your own personal interests. I've had students in the past who were fascinated by engineering and were engineering graduates. I've had insurance professionals, I've had management professionals, I've even had a doctor who studied law subsequently and went into the practice. I think one of the most interesting students I've had, and he might have appeared on this channel on a few occasions as well, was a fast track student of mine who was a professional sportsperson, a sportsman, who later did a GDL program in order to become a barrister specializing in sports law, so that he could represent other sports people in terms of their disputes in the court of arbitration for sport, for example, which made perfect sense as a person who has the experience, the know-how, and the background in one particular area that he's passionate on, and then substituting, or rather supplementing that with law. So don't shoehorn yourself into one particular area. Be open-minded. Being a solicitor, barrister, or sometimes even a judge is only one pathway. I often tell my students about the relatively unorthodox path that I have taken as a graduate in law. I teach law, but not at a university. I teach all of you on the YouTube channel, on the online law school platform, and I'm very proud of having over 50,000 students from 190 countries. And I'd be hard-pressed to find someone in a university who hasn't gone through at least one of my videos. So don't limit yourself. Don't try to compartmentalize what is possible. Think broadly. Talk to people. You can even look at most of the videos on this channel. I've also left my contact details on in the description, as well as different videos on this platform as well, and I'd be happy to help with advice for any person that might want to be mentored or guided by me in terms of which area of expertise that they could supplement with the law. So as a student going into the law, just keep in mind that it's not just about doing the law and then pursuing a particular career path which is generic, but there are other options that you can pursue as well. Right. The third aspect then, having considered your substantive area or your study, your professional career path, and whichever pathway you tend to want to go in, what I've noticed in a lot of people over the years is their inability to grow exponentially beyond that. One main reason for this is fatigue, and I'll get to that in a bit. But the other reason is lack of creativity. And this also sounds quite blunt and harsh on my part. So the fatigue aspect of it is because most students tend to think of their academics and then later career more like a sprint as opposed to a marathon. What I mean by that is your academics probably account for 10 to 15% of your entire career in law. Your professional aspect of it will take the lion's share of maybe 50 to 60% of your time frame, but you need to allocate some time for growth as well, where you might want to, if you are going the generic route of a solicitor or a barrister, to carve out a niche for yourself, a specialization, and then separate yourself from everyone else to carve out your own path as a solitary individual, as an entrepreneur, for example. But more often than not, due to excitement on the one hand and motivation at the very inception of doing law, most students tend to put almost their entire energy, even more so than usual, into their academics and their early career, which means that they get burnt out quite quickly. I've seen students who achieve second, upper, and first class law degrees, get hired by some of the best firms there are, but then a couple of years down the line, they are completely drained. They wish they hadn't done law in the first place. Some even drop out of the career altogether and pursue other paths. It's not because they are not good. It's not because they can't cope with the stress or the virtues of the particular profession, but rather it's because they're just tired. So you have to be very careful and mindful of how you manage your energy. This doesn't mean that you should be slow in whatever you're doing. On the contrary, it means you need to pace yourself. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I usually say this quite a lot to all of my fast track and masterclass students, to pace yourself when it comes to a career in law. Because you need to save up for when you take your own business, and I'm using that term loosely here. By business, I mean your personal brand and who you are and what you bring to the table to the next level at the growth stage. That's something that you would do perhaps in your 40s or so, but it's always good to understand and have a plan in mind of what you want to achieve with this. Because law on its own should be a foundation and a bedrock for greater things. It shouldn't encompass everything that you do. It's a start, perhaps a propeller, so to speak, to get you to the point that you want to go to. But then from that point onwards, it's your experience, it's your skill, it's your network, and it's your know-how that will take you above and beyond everyone else in the industry that you've chosen. Right. This was a bit of a long video, and I would argue a different type of video at that as well than what you generally see on this YouTube channel. And the reason for this is because I'm going on 9 years of teaching law to all of y'all. I've been teaching 34 modules, both substantive and procedural, in 3 different jurisdictions. And over the years, I've had the opportunity of meeting some extraordinary people. I've seen their growth as well. I've seen the pitfalls of some students. I've seen extreme successes of others. And I'm at a unique position, I feel, having worked with people from all around the world with different backgrounds to understand where certain, at least from a framework standpoint, where certain people fall short and where they can optimize to succeed. If you'd like to see more videos of this caliber, and I think there's quite a bit of experience that I have gained over the past several years to impart in terms of your career development as well, do leave a comment in the description below, especially if you have concerns yourself in terms of how you should progress. See, if you feel stagnant, if you feel like you're stuck in what you're doing, I'll be more than happy to help. And everyone is always welcome to reach out on the official WhatsApp number or my email, which is available in pretty much every description in the videos on this YouTube channel. But having said that, until the next time that we meet, have fun, stay safe, and as always, obey the law.